The homecoming was meant to be solace after 9 grueling months at sea, hauling cargo across the Pacific aboard a rust-stained freighter. I envisioned only one scene during the return flight. My wife Amanda rushing into my embrace at the airport, my children shrieking, "Daddy?" as I abandoned my duffel bag and knelt to gather them close. Their carefully chosen gifts were secured in my luggage: a hand-carved compass for Ethan, an iridescent mermaid locket for Lily. I'd rehearsed that reunion so vividly in my mind, I nearly convinced myself it had already unfolded. Instead, I stood frozen across the street from my own home, witnessing a waking nightmare beneath the harsh afternoon sun. A vehicle occupied my driveway, a pristine white convertible still adorned with streamers and gaudy plastic balloons. The license plate frame proclaimed, "Just Married," in bold letters, the kind of tacky detail I'd normally mock if it weren't, parked outside my own damn house. My house. I blinked hard, desperately hoping jet lag had scrambled my senses, that perhaps I'd stumbled to the wrong address, that maybe exhaustion was playing cruel tricks. But then I spotted Amanda's cherished, throw pillow carelessly tossed onto the porch bench. The breeze caught the corner of her floral robe through the upstairs window left ajar. No mistake, I was home. I simply wasn't welcome here. Then my phone vibrated. "Amanda, don't bother coming. The locks are changed. The kids don't want you. It's over." That was it. No punctuation, no endearment, just 3 brutal sentences that struck like physical blows. She didn't offer, "Let's discuss this." She didn't murmur, "Welcome back." She didn't whisper, "I'm sorry." She declared the locks were changed. That my own children didn't want me. I didn't respond with fury. I didn't dial her number. I didn't grovel. I simply typed, "As you wish," then scrolled through my contacts to Dean Walker, my attorney. I tapped call. "Dean, it's time," I said. "Execute everything. No warnings. Scorched earth." I didn't await his response. I disconnected. That was 3:41 p.m. By 5 p.m., her accounts were locked solid. By 7 p.m., I'd filed custody petitions, and half the neighborhood was buzzing with whispers. By midnight, I had 22 missed calls, the final voicemail from her attorney, frantic and desperate. "You have no legal authority to—" It cut off abruptly. I smiled for the first time in months. Let me enlighten you about spending 9 months on a cargo vessel with 34 other men. You master patience, you develop endurance, and you learn to bear suffering in absolute silence. I'd been deciphering Amanda's hidden messages for years, the way her voice turned razor-sharp during late-night calls, how she perpetually forgot time zone differences, the way I never appeared in her social media posts. I hadn't wanted to acknowledge it then, but now I possessed irrefutable evidence. Not speculation, not paranoia. Proof. I returned to the rental car and cast one final glance at the house. Windows glowed with warm, inviting light. Silhouettes danced behind curtains. Laughter spilled through a partially opened window. Not my laughter. Not my family. She hadn't merely replaced me, she'd obliterated me. I retrieved my phone again. Another message had arrived from Amanda. "You've always been theatrical. Grow up and move forward. I'm finally content. You should be too." There it was, the mask slipping away completely. Amanda used to masquerade, pretending to weep when I departed, pretending to pine for me, pretending to remain faithful. But she was never any of those things. She was perpetually concerned with dominance, with appearances, a professional manipulator in designer athleisure. She wasn't merely a disappointing wife. She was expert-level deceit, and she just engaged in the wrong game with the wrong opponent. You see, while she stayed home posting filtered selfies with fabricated captions, I was at sea, constructing escape strategies in my mind. Every solitary night I spent gazing at endless waves, I imagined what I'd do if I ever caught her in betrayal. Well, I hadn't caught her stumbling. I'd caught her shoving me into the gutter while rolling out a red carpet for someone else. I'd simply returned home during her victory parade, and now I would incinerate everything she considered hers, not through violence, but with frigid, unshakable precision. Because I wasn't the same man who'd departed on that vessel. I was something far more dangerous, and Amanda had no comprehension of the tempest she'd just unleashed. By the time dawn painted the edges of the clouds, I clutched a hotel key in one pocket and a bottle of bourbon in the other. I didn't touch the liquor. Not yet. I required absolute clarity. Every moment from now forward was a calculated move on the board, and Amanda had no idea the match had even commenced. At 7:42 a.m., I strode into my bank branch, the same location where Amanda used to smirk while making withdrawals in yoga pants, masquerading as some helpless housewife. I executed documents transferring our joint accounts to individual status. Amanda's card was terminated. Her access vanished. Then came the property. The deed had always borne my name exclusively. Amanda knew this. She simply never imagined I'd weaponize it. But when the divorce pre-filings landed in her inbox that morning, so did the official notification demanding she vacate within 48 hours. Since she'd already changed the locks, I simplified matters. I contacted a locksmith myself and replaced every mechanism she'd just installed with biometric security, keyed exclusively to my fingerprints. True revenge doesn't always resemble screaming. Sometimes it manifests as silence and a courier envelope. At 10:13 a.m., Amanda finally called. I observed her name pulsating on the screen. I didn't answer. I let it ring endlessly. She called repeatedly, then finally surrendered a voicemail. "You're seriously overreacting, Jason," she said, her voice carrying that practiced composure she deployed when manipulating the children. "We should communicate. I mean, this is all melodramatic. I thought we were mature adults." I replayed that voicemail 6 times. Not once did she apologize, not once did she confess to missing me or loving me or regretting anything, just, "We should communicate." Translation: repair what I shattered so I don't face consequences. Around noon, I received a message from my daughter's school. The principal wanted to verify whether I'd authorized Amanda's decision to designate her new boyfriend as an emergency. Contact. My jaw clenched so violently I thought I'd fracture a tooth. I drove there personally, presented paperwork confirming full temporary custody, and eliminated Amanda's name entirely. I deposited copies of those documents in her lawyer's inbox with a note, "Feel free to call again, I'm available every never." The truth, I no longer recognized her. This was the same woman who used to weep when I boarded ships, who sent me lengthy emails about how hollow the bed felt without me, who begged me to complete just one more voyage so we could finally afford the lake house. All lies. Every word. Now, she was playing house with some stranger in my home, driving the vehicle I'd financed, attempting to erase me from my children's existence. The most devastating part? She genuinely believed she'd escape unscathed. You don't marry a sailor and expect him to drown silently. That night I parked across the street again. Same view. Transformed heart. The celebration balloons had vanished. The driveway stood empty. Lights were extinguished. Amanda had called 13 times, left 8 voicemails. The final ones sounded shaken. "I didn't think you'd actually follow through. I mean, we were separated. Jason, emotionally you've been absent for months. What was I supposed to do? Just wait indefinitely?" There it was. The justification. The rehearsed script. Except I'd never signed up for a marriage with expiration dates. I hadn't wed her with a contract stipulating void if husband departs for employment. I'd destroyed my body at sea to provide her everything, and she'd auctioned it off the instant the door closed behind me. I had 2 choices. Scream, fight, demand explanations, or seal every door and never glance backward. I chose the latter. But, just before departing the car, I glimpsed her silhouette in the window. Amanda, arms crossed, speaking on the phone, pacing like a cornered predator. I wondered if she was calling him, her new man, the same one who probably wore my robe, occupied, my chair, and slept on my sheets. The same one who probably tucked my daughter in with artificial warmth while I hauled diesel drums through Pacific tempests. Then I smiled again. Let her savor her new existence. It was constructed on sand, and I'd just yanked out the foundation. She'd mistaken my absence for weakness. She'd forgotten that sailors don't sink, we survive. And when we return home, we bring the tide with us. 2 days elapsed before she appeared at my hotel. I was dining alone, scrolling through an email from Dean regarding the asset freeze when I noticed the hostess glanced nervously toward the entrance. Her expression tensed. I didn't need to turn around. I felt Amanda's presence before seeing her. That cloying perfume. The imposing heels she wore exclusively when she wanted to manipulate someone. She approached my table like nothing had transpired. "Jason," she said, her voice carrying that strained, artificially sweet tone she employed when she needed something. "Can we talk?" I didn't lift my gaze from my coffee. "You already expressed everything in your text, and in case you've forgotten, don't bother coming. Doesn't leave much room for dialogue." She pulled out the chair across from me and sat uninvited. "You're being cruel," she said, crossing her arms. "I was in a dark place, okay? You left, you were gone for nearly a year, and I felt abandoned. I made a mistake, but I didn't think you'd incinerate our entire life over it. My mistake." I finally looked at her. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. You hosted a wedding in my driveway, Amanda." She flinched as if I'd struck her. "I didn't marry him," she whispered. I raised an eyebrow. "Then whose name was on the 'just married' sign?" She hesitated, then scoffed. "It was symbolic. I was trying to move forward." "Symbolic? That's precious. Were the balloons symbolic too?" She blinked rapidly, her facade cracking. "Why are you doing this? You changed the locks. You told the kids I was gone permanently. You tried to erase me like I was some one-night stand you regretted. You humiliated me in my own home. Now you're asking why I'm doing this?" She leaned forward, anger flashing. "You always think you're the victim. Maybe if you were actually present, instead of sailing off to God knows where for months, I wouldn't have had to find happiness elsewhere." There it was, her truth. Not remorse, not regret, just blame. As if loyalty had expiration dates, as if commitment dissolved when life became challenging. I stood up. She followed. "Jason, wait, please," I said, extracting my wallet. I dropped. A 50 on the table, enough to cover my coffee and whatever ego she'd shattered by walking in. "You forfeited the right to chase me the moment you brought a man into my house and told our children I was replaceable." Her voice rose. "You can't." "Just walk away from this." "I'm not walking," I said. "I'm erasing." I left her there in that overpriced hotel cafe surrounded by strangers pretending not to stare. Later that afternoon, Dean called again. Amanda's new man, his name was Cole, apparently, had been served with a cease and desist. He'd been driving my vehicle around town, claiming to be a legal guardian for Ethan and Lily. He wasn't even listed on a school form. Now he faced a temporary restraining order and a court summons. And Amanda. She messaged again that night. "I'm calling the kids. You can't keep them from me. They're not pawns." I didn't reply. I never needed to. Because the truth was, Ethan and Lily had already seen through her. When I collected them from school that afternoon, Lily sprinted straight into my arms. "You came back," she said, burying her face in my neck. "I never left," I whispered. Ethan remained quiet, but when we reached the car, he asked if he could stay with me for a while. His voice was cautious, like he was testing the waters. I said yes, no conditions. That night, we ate takeout on the floor of the small rental house I'd moved into. Just the three of us. No drama, no shouting, no deception. Amanda tried calling. Again, this time I blocked her. Not from pettiness, but for peace. Because for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like liberation. A week later, Amanda filed an emergency motion in court, claiming I'd kidnapped the kids. It backfired spectacularly. Dean walked into that courtroom with a stack of printed text messages, school records, and a sworn affidavit from the children's counselor. Amanda hadn't expected me to be 10 moves ahead. She still thought I was that same naive man who believed every tear she shed over FaceTime. The judge didn't buy her performance. She sat there in her designer blazer, trying to appear victimized while the truth peeled off her like wet paint. When the judge asked Ethan if he wanted to speak, he nodded. "Brave kid. I just want to stay with my dad for now," he said. "It's calmer there. It feels more genuine." Amanda didn't even look at him. She just stared straight ahead, lips compressed. I recognized that expression, the same one she wore when she used to lie and pretend nothing was wrong. The court granted me temporary primary custody. Amanda received visitation rights but supervised. She stormed out before the papers were signed. That night she posted a picture of herself on Instagram with some quote about rising from ashes. Her caption was something like, "You can't break a woman who was born in fire." I laughed. She wasn't born in fire. She was forged in deception. The next day, Cole appeared at the school. He tried to act like it was some innocent misunderstanding, claiming Amanda had told him to deliver a lunchbox. But the security guard saw his name on the restraining order and called it in. He was escorted off the property within minutes. Amanda messaged me 2 hours later. "That was a misunderstanding. You didn't have to humiliate him, you're being vindictive." I didn't respond, not because I lacked words, but because I had better things to do. Like take my kids to the beach, like teach Ethan how to skip stones, like help Lily build a seashell necklace she swore she'd wear forever. I watched them laugh as waves chased their ankles, and for a moment, I forgot what betrayal felt like. But Amanda didn't stop. She appeared at my rental a few days later. She didn't knock. She pounded, loud, insistent. I opened the door just enough to make a point. She wore sunglasses, but I could see the fury behind them. "You're destroying everything," she hissed. "Do you even hear yourself? You're tearing this family apart." I tilted my head. "You mean the family you expelled me from via text?" She didn't answer. "You're the one who locked me out," I said. "You told me I wasn't wanted. You brought someone else into my house while I was out there sacrificing my body to keep this family afloat. You think it's easy being abandoned for almost a year? I needed someone. You needed someone while I was keeping the lights on? You needed someone while I missed birthdays and first steps and midnight calls with sobbing kids?" Her voice cracked. "You don't understand." "No, Amanda, you don't understand. You made choices. You don't get to weep about the consequences now." She looked past me, perhaps hoping to glimpse the kids inside and guilt me into surrendering another piece of what she'd destroyed. I shut the door before she could try. Later that night, Ethan asked me if I still loved her. I didn't answer immediately. Then I said, "I loved who I thought she was. But people change, buddy, and sometimes they don't return from it." He nodded like he understood more than a child his age should. I tucked him in, then stared at the ceiling for a long time because he wasn't wrong to ask, and I wasn't wrong to leave the answer incomplete. The next morning, there was a package at my doorstep. No note, no name, just a white box tied with a silver ribbon. Inside lay Amanda's wedding ring. I held it in my palm for several seconds, felt its weight. The cold metal that once symbolized forever now felt like nothing, just a pretty lie. I didn't discard it, I didn't return it. I simply dropped it into the drawer with old receipts and broken chargers. That's what it had become. Useless and buried under things that no longer functioned. Amanda didn't cease trying. A few days later, she left a voicemail. This one was different. "I miss our family. I miss waking up beside someone who cared about me. I know I messed up, Jason. I know I wounded you. I don't expect forgiveness, but please don't erase me completely." There it was, cracks in the mask. Her voice trembled, but still not once did she say, "I'm sorry." Not once did she own it. Just more emotional theater without a script. The worst part? A piece of me still wanted to believe her, but then I got a message from Lily's school counselor. Apparently, Amanda had tried to collect her early the day before, unannounced and unauthorized. The school denied her, as they should have, but Lily had seen her mother's face through the glass and she'd wept for the rest of the day, I sat with Lily that evening. She curled into my side and asked, "Why is Mommy acting like she didn't do anything wrong?" I didn't know how to answer a question like that, so I told her the only truth I could. Some people lie to themselves so convincingly they forget it's a lie. She didn't say anything, just held me a little tighter. Amanda started emailing me then. Lengthy messages, every paragraph attempting a different strategy. Guilt, blame, flattery, rage. She even claimed Cole was out of the picture and that she realized what a mistake it had all been. But the moment that sealed everything, she sent me a photograph. It was of the four of us. Me, her, Ethan, and Lily at the lake house. Smiling. Happy, whole. Beneath the picture she wrote, "We could be this again." I stared at that photo for a long time, and I realized something profound. We were never that. The smiles were real, certainly. The kids were real. But Amanda? She was always in costume, always waiting for the moment to redirect the spotlight back to herself. That photo wasn't a memory, it was a performance. So I wrote one sentence back. "I'm raising them without lies." She didn't reply. A week later, Dean called. Amanda's lawyer wanted to settle. No more court battles, no more emergency motions, just signatures and silence. I agreed without hesitation. The final papers arrived a few days later. I signed them that evening, alone in the kitchen after the kids had gone to bed. The pen didn't tremble. My heart didn't race. There were no tears. Only peace. Amanda had incinerated the bridge between us and then acted surprised when she couldn't cross back. She'd underestimated something fundamental. I didn't need revenge. I needed release. And I achieved it with every signature, with every locked door, with every bedtime story I read to my kids while she was left staring at the empty half of a bed she'd made cold by herself. She chose fire, but I walked through it. I didn't just survive, I emerged cleaner, stronger. Weeks passed and the noise faded. No more lawyers, no more drama, just ordinary days, school drop-offs, packed lunches, and bedtime giggles. I started sleeping again, genuine sleep, the kind where your jaw isn't clenched and your phone isn't clutched in your hand, anticipating someone trying to steal something from you. Ethan started smiling more. He asked to join a soccer team. Lily began drawing again. She created a picture of our house, just me and the two of them holding hands under an enormous sun. Amanda wasn't in it. She didn't even ask why when I displayed it on the fridge. The silence from her end grew louder. No calls, no texts, just the occasional shared calendar notification about visitation times she rarely utilized. When she did appear, it was brief, awkward and overly rehearsed. She tried too hard with the kids, gave them expensive gifts, promised Disney expeditions. They smiled politely, but they never asked to stay longer. I think they finally saw it, not just what she'd done, but who she truly was. I heard through someone at the school that Cole left quietly. No fireworks, just gone. Apparently, he realized being with Amanda wasn't as glamorous once the curtain dropped. She tried to cling to him the same way she tried to cling to me when her audience thinned out. She once told me, "People don't change, they just reveal." She was right, but I don't think she expected to be the proof of her own theory. One evening, Ethan entered the living room and sat beside me on the couch. No words, just sat there close. I waited. Then he said, "You're better now." I turned toward him. "What do you mean? You don't look exhausted all the time. You used to look sad, even before you left on the ship." I didn't know what to say to that. Children see everything. They see the fractures in a smile, the lies in a laugh. He knew more than I realized. Maybe he always had. That weekend we went, hiking, just the three of us. There was this moment at the top of the ridge, the sun beginning to set, wind in our faces, and not a single sound except the trees. Lily held my hand and Ethan took a picture of us. "I'm going to frame it," he said, and something inside me shifted. I didn't need to repair the past. I didn't need apologies or explanations. I had my answer right there. This peace. This New life, these two kids, was everything I fought for. Everything I refused to let her poison. Amanda was just the storm I had to navigate to get here. And now that I was here, I wasn't looking back. I received a letter, not an email, not a text, an actual handwritten letter. Amanda's handwriting was sharp, rushed like she was squeezing every word out of guilt and desperation. She wrote that she'd started therapy, that she was unpacking old wounds and realizing how much she projected her misery onto the people who cared about her. She mentioned her childhood, her insecurities, her loneliness. She tried to explain that what she did wasn't about love or hatred. It was about control. She admitted to cheating, though she didn't call it that. She called it a reaction, like she was a bystander in her own betrayal. She ended with, "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I hope one day you'll understand why it all happened the way it did." I folded the letter, slid it into a drawer, and never responded because I didn't care why anymore. Understanding her wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't make her a better mother. It wouldn't undo what she did to our family, and it sure as hell wouldn't give me back the nights I sat on a cargo ship wondering if my wife still thought of me when she was already constructing a new world without me. But something changed that day. Not with her, with me. I stopped thinking about the past as something I needed to heal from. I stopped asking why she did it or what I could have done differently. I released the idea that closure had to come from her. Closure came when Lily laughed so hard at dinner. She spit juice all over the table. Closure came when Ethan asked me to teach him how to cook his favorite breakfast. Closure came when I realized I didn't flinch when I heard Amanda's name. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't forgetting. It was simply the end of giving her any more real estate in my mind. One night after putting the kids to bed, I stood in the kitchen and looked at their drawings stuck to the fridge. I saw the photos we'd taken on hikes, at the lake, in the backyard, and I realized this was a new chapter, not a continuation but a restart. One without lies, without begging for someone to care, without pretending I wasn't the man she left, I was the man I found. She tried to rewrite our story with someone else, but I wrote the ending. And the ending wasn't revenge or rage. It was peace. A few months later, I stood in the same courtroom where it all started. Only this time it was final. The divorce was done. Custody was settled. No more hearings. No more lawyers. Amanda sat 2 rows behind me, silent. No mascara tears, no tantrums, no false apologies, just a quiet, defeated presence. For once, she didn't speak when the judge signed the final decree and nodded at me. It felt less like a finish line and more like the closing of a prison gate. I stepped out of the courthouse and into the sunlight, breathing like I hadn't in years. No weight on my chest, no tightness in my jaw, just air. Fresh, clean, and mine. The kids and I moved a week later. New house, new town, nothing fancy, just ours. Ethan decorated his room with maps and photos of cargo ships. He told me he might want to sail one day. I smiled and said, "Only if you promise to come home." Lily painted her room yellow, bright, stubborn, full of light, just like her. She asked me to hang her favorite picture above the bed, the one of us 3 at the beach. It became our symbol, proof that we rebuilt something better from the wreckage. Sometimes, Amanda called. I answered, but I never let her back in. She saw the kids when the court allowed. She tried harder now, less manipulation, more effort. But it was too late to matter. The kids were old enough to see her clearly. They loved her, but they didn't trust her. Not yet, maybe not ever. And me? I started writing again, journaling, something I hadn't done since before the ocean swallowed so much of my time. I wrote not for closure, but for clarity, to remind myself how far I'd come. I met people, talked, laughed. Slowly, I remembered what it felt like to be a man outside of pain, and eventually I stopped waiting for the past to knock on the door. It never did. One evening, as I tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at me and said, "You're not sad anymore." I paused, then smiled. "No, I'm not." She nodded, satisfied, and closed her eyes. And in that quiet moment, with the sound of my daughter's breathing and the house wrapped in peace, I realized Amanda broke something. But she didn't break me. She freed me. And in losing everything I thought I needed, I found everything I never knew I could build again. Stronger, real, mine.